The lecture hall smelled of old wood and coffee, familiar scents that had become my sanctuary over the past 3 years. I traced my pen along the margin of my anatomy textbook, outlining the cardiovascular system with practiced precision, while Professor Chen's voice droned on about myocardial infarction. Around me, other students typed notes on laptops or whispered to each other. But I kept my head down, my dark hair falling forward like a curtain between me and the world. 3 rules. That's all I had to follow to maintain this fragile freedom. Don't fall in love. Don't marry. Don't call attention. In exchange, I got to be Hope Rossi here, just another medical student grinding through organic chemistry and anatomy practicals. Not Hope Bonaro, daughter of the most influential capo in the Bianke Mafia organization that controlled the American underground. My phone buzzed against my thigh, and I glanced down at the screen hidden beneath the desk. Marco, my brother. The text made my stomach clench. Running late. Delay 15 minutes. I texted back quickly. No problem. Library after? His response came immediately. Always, Sorelina. The nickname made me smile despite the constant weight of hypervigilance I carried. Little sister. Marco had been calling me that since I was 3 years old, usually right before he let me win at cards or snuck me extra dessert when our father wasn't looking. Class ended at 3, and I gathered my books with mechanical precision, hyper-aware of the 2 men in dark suits who'd been sitting in the back row for the past 2 hours. They weren't students. They never were. My protection detail rotated every week. Different faces, but always the same watchful presence. Today it was Luca and Giovanni, both seasoned soldiers in my father's organization. The October air hit me as I pushed through the double doors, crisp and tinged with the scent of dying leaves. Campus was beautiful this time of year, all red and gold canopies and students hurrying between classes with scarves wrapped tight against the chill. I could almost pretend I was one of them. Almost. The black SUV waited at the usual spot, 3 blocks from campus where it wouldn't draw attention. I'd learned early that fitting in meant walking like everyone else, carrying coffee like everyone else, laughing at my phone like everyone else. The princess in the ivory tower was too visible. Better to be invisible. Luca opened the rear door as I approached, his expression professionally neutral. Good afternoon, Miss Rossi. I slid into the leather seat, my medical bag heavy on my lap. How's your daughter, Luca? The one with the ear infection? His face softened fractionally. Much better, miss. The antibiotics you suggested worked perfectly. Good. Make sure she finishes the full course, even if she feels better. Giovanni took the driver's seat, and we pulled into traffic with practiced ease. The route changed daily, another security measure, but I'd long since stopped paying attention to where we were going. My mind was already on the evening ahead, study group at 7, then reviewing case studies until midnight. Finals were 3 weeks away, and I needed perfect scores to maintain my scholarship. The scholarship that made me Hope Rossi instead of Hope Bonaro. We'd been driving for maybe 10 minutes when Giovanni's posture changed. Subtle, but I'd learned to read these men like textbooks. His shoulders tightened. His eyes flicked to the rearview mirror more frequently. Luca, he said quietly. Luca was already turning in his seat, his hand moving toward the interior of his jacket. Black sedan, 3 cars back, been with us since the university. My heart kicked into a higher gear, but I kept my voice steady. Are you sure? 4th time this week, Giovanni replied, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Different car each time. The SUV accelerated smoothly, weaving between lanes with practiced precision. I clutched my bag tighter, watching the city blur past the tinted windows. This wasn't supposed to happen. My father's protection was absolute. The Bonaro name alone should have been enough to keep threats at bay. Call Marco, Luca instructed, his phone already against his ear. Tell him we're rerouting to the safe house on Lexington. My fingers fumbled with my phone, Marco's number appearing before I'd consciously decided to dial. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Come on," I whispered. "Pick up." The explosion came from nowhere and everywhere at once. One moment we were accelerating through an intersection. The next, the world was spinning, metal shrieking, glass shattering into 1,000 diamond fragments that caught the afternoon sun. My head cracked against something hard, and darkness swallowed everything. I came to with blood in my mouth and the acrid smell of burning rubber in my nostrils. The SUV was on its side, and I was suspended by my seatbelt, hanging at an awkward angle that made my ribs scream. Every breath felt like knives. "Luca?" My voice came out strangled, barely audible over the ringing in my ears. "Giovanni?" No response. Through the shattered window, I could see pavement and the undercarriage of another vehicle. Smoke was beginning to fill the cabin, thick and choking. Move. I had to move. My fingers found the seatbelt release, and I dropped hard onto what had been the passenger side door, my shoulder taking the impact. Stars exploded across my vision, but I forced myself to breathe through it. Medical training kicked in automatically. Assess injuries, check for immediate dangers, find an exit. The windshield was completely gone. That was my way out. I crawled forward, broken glass tearing at my clothes and skin, leaving hot trails of pain that I couldn't afford to acknowledge. Behind me, I could hear voices shouting in Italian, but the words were distorted, meaningless through the fog in my head. Fresh air hit me as I pulled myself through the windshield opening, and I collapsed onto the asphalt, gasping. The street was chaos. Cars stopped at odd angles, people running, someone screaming, and surrounding our destroyed SUV were 4 men in dark clothing, weapons visible beneath their jackets. Not my father's men. Terror crystallized into perfect clarity. I pushed myself up, ignoring the protest of bruised ribs and the blood dripping from somewhere on my scalp. Run. I had to run. I made it maybe 3 steps before rough hands grabbed my arms, yanking me backward. I struggled, remembering every self-defense lesson Marco had drilled into me. But my body wasn't cooperating. Everything hurt. Everything was slow. "Got her," one of the men grunted in English. "Boss wants her alive." The world tilted again as they dragged me toward a waiting van. This was it. This was how it ended. All my father's precautions, all those years of careful invisibility, shattered in a single afternoon. Then gunfire erupted, sharp cracks that made everyone freeze. The hands holding me suddenly released, and I stumbled forward, catching myself against the van's open door. More shots. Shouting. The metallic smell of blood mixing with burning rubber and gasoline. When I looked up, he was there. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from marble. He moved with fluid precision, each motion economical and lethal, his charcoal suit somehow remaining pristine despite the violence unfolding around him. 2 more men flanked him, equally efficient, equally deadly. The 4 men who'd grabbed me were on the ground now, in various states of consciousness. I didn't look too closely at them. Couldn't. The man in the charcoal suit approached me with measured steps, his dark eyes, almost black in the fading afternoon light, assessing me with clinical interest. "Hope Bonaro," he said, and his voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an Italian accent that made my name sound like music. "You're bleeding." I touched my forehead, my fingers coming away red. "I'm fine." His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You're not fine. You're in shock, likely concussed, and there are at least 3 more vehicles full of men who want you dead heading this way." He extended his hand. "Come with me, or stay here and discover what they have planned for the capo's daughter. Your choice." Behind us, sirens began to wail. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm despite the October chill, and he pulled me toward a black Mercedes that had appeared seemingly from nowhere. One of his men opened the rear door, and I slid inside, my legs suddenly boneless. The man in the charcoal suit followed, settling beside me with casual grace. Up close, I could see the details. The precise tailoring of his three-piece suit, the platinum watch on his wrist that probably cost more than a year of my tuition, the small scar along his jawline that suggested he wasn't just another pretty face in an expensive suit. "Michael Bianke," he said, as the car pulled away from the chaos behind us. "And before you ask, yes, that Bianke. The Bianke family." The name every made man whispered with equal parts respect and fear. The organization that had been rivals with the Bonaro family for 3 generations, constantly jockeying for position in the hierarchy of American organized crime. "Why?" The word came out hoarse. "Why did you save me?" His dark eyes held mine, and I saw something calculating in their depths, something that made my breath catch for reasons that had nothing to do with my injuries. "Because, Hope Bonaro, I needed to discuss a business proposition with your father. And now..." His thumb traced across my knuckles where his hand still held mine. "I have excellent leverage to ensure he listens." The Bianke compound wasn't what I expected. Somehow I'd imagined something ostentatious, all marble columns and gaudy displays of wealth. Instead, the estate that rose before us as we drove through automated gates was elegant, understated, a sprawling property that spoke of old money and careful taste. Stone and glass architecture set back from the road, surrounded by manicured grounds that probably required a small army of groundskeepers. My head throbbed with every heartbeat, and the adrenaline that had kept me functional was rapidly draining away, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Beside me, Michael Bianke maintained that same relaxed posture, scrolling through his phone with one hand while the other remained draped casually across the back of the seat, not touching me, but close enough that I was hyper-aware of his presence. "Your brother is alive," he said without looking up from his screen. "Critical condition, but stable. St. Vincent's Hospital. Private floor. Your father's men have secured the entire wing." The relief was so intense it made me dizzy. "Marco, he was in the car behind us?" "He was the target," Michael replied, his tone matter of fact. "You were collateral, though I suspect once they realized who you were, the plan changed." Now he did look at me, those dark eyes assessing. "The Castellano family has been making moves against your father for months. Today was their opening gambit." The Castellanos. I knew the name, though my father had been careful to keep me isolated from the details of his business. They controlled territory in New Jersey, had been pushing into Manhattan for years, challenging the established order. "And you just happened to be there?" Skepticism colored my voice despite my exhaustion. His smile was slow, dangerous. "I make it my business to know when rival families are planning something ambitious. The Castellanos are predictable. You, on the other hand..." His gaze dropped to my torn jacket, the blood on my hands. "You're an unexpected variable." The car stopped in front of the main house, and a woman in her 50s appeared at the entrance. Not a servant's uniform, but elegant casual clothes that suggested authority. Her dark hair was streaked with silver, pulled back in a neat bun, and her sharp eyes took in my disheveled state with immediate concern. "Madonna Santa," she breathed, hurrying down the steps. "Michael, what have you done?" "Prevented an abduction, Maria." He exited the car with fluid grace and extended his hand to me. "This is Hope Bonaro. She'll be staying with us while certain situations are resolved. Hope, this is Maria Bianke, my aunt, and the only person in this house you should trust completely." I took his hand, because my legs were trembling too badly to manage the step down on my own. Maria immediately took over, her arm coming around my waist in a gesture that was both supportive and oddly maternal. "You're hurt," she said, her Italian accent thicker than Michael's. "Come, Cara, let's get you cleaned up and looked at properly." "I'm a medical student," I managed, I can assess myself." "I'm sure you can." Maria guided me toward the entrance with surprising strength for her size. "But humor an old woman, yes? My nephew brings home a bleeding girl. I want to make sure she doesn't collapse in my foyer." The interior matched the exterior's understated elegance. Cream walls, dark wood accents, artwork that looked original and expensive without being ostentatious. We climbed a sweeping staircase, and Maria led me down a hallway to a bedroom that was easily 3 times the size of my apartment. "Sit," she instructed, pointing to an upholstered bench at the foot of a 4-poster bed. "I'll get the first aid kit." I sat, mostly because standing was becoming difficult. The room was beautiful. Cream and soft blue tones, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. A bathroom door stood ajar, revealing marble and brass fixtures. Everything screamed wealth, but it was the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Maria returned with a professional-looking medical kit and a bowl of warm water. She worked in silence at first, cleaning the cut on my forehead with practiced efficiency. I watched her face, noting the family resemblance to Michael in the strong bone structure and those penetrating dark eyes. "You're wondering why he brought you here," she said finally, not a question. "Among other things. Michael doesn't do anything without calculating every angle." She applied butterfly closures to my forehead with gentle precision. "But he's not cruel, Hope. Whatever deal he's making with your father, it won't be at your expense." I wanted to believe her. The alternative, that I was a hostage, leverage, a pawn in some power play between families, was too terrifying to fully contemplate. A knock at the door interrupted us. Michael entered without waiting for permission, now changed into dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He'd removed his tie, and the top 2 buttons were undone, revealing a glimpse of tanned skin and what looked like the edge of a tattoo. "Your father will call within the hour," he said, leaning against the doorframe with that same casual elegance that seemed to be his default state. "I've sent him proof that you're alive and unharmed." "Proof?" The word came out sharper than intended. He held up his phone, showing a photo that must have been taken moments ago. Me sitting on the bench, Maria tending to my forehead. I looked pale, shaken, but whole. Alive. "He'll want to speak to me," I said. "Of course. And you'll tell him you're being treated well, that you're safe, and that I have a proposition he'll want to hear." Michael's tone remained conversational, but there was steel beneath the velvet. "What you won't tell him is where you are, what security measures are in place, or anything else that might encourage a rescue attempt that would put you in danger. You're holding me hostage. I'm protecting you." He pushed off from the doorframe and crossed to where I sat, crouching down so we were at eye level. This close, I could smell his cologne, something with notes of cedar and bergamot that was probably Italian and definitely expensive. The Castellanos won't stop because today failed. They'll try again, and your father's resources are stretched protecting your brother. Here, you're safe. Here, you're valuable for reasons beyond your last name. What reasons? His smile was slow, deliberate. That's between your father and me, Bellezza. For now, rest. Recover. Let Maria take care of you. Tomorrow we'll discuss the terms of your stay. He rose and moved toward the door, Maria following with a meaningful look that suggested she wanted to speak with him privately. But I called out before they could leave. "Michael." He paused, looking back over his shoulder. "Thank you for saving me." Something flickered in those dark eyes, surprise maybe, or satisfaction. "Don't thank me yet, Hope. You don't know what I'm going to cost your father." After they left, I sat in the quiet elegance of that borrowed room and finally allowed myself to process everything. The attack, Marco in critical condition, being rescued by Michael Bianke of all people, the careful dance of power and protection and calculation. My phone buzzed. My father. I answered on the second ring. Papa. Hope. His voice was rough with emotion he rarely showed. Tell me you're unharmed. Bruised, shaken, but okay. Marco. We'll survive. I have the best surgeons, the best care. You don't worry about Marco. A pause. This man, Michael Bianke, he's treating you well? I glanced around the luxury bedroom, remembered Maria's gentle care, Michael's clinical but not unkind efficiency. Yes, he says he has a proposition for you. Another pause, longer this time. I know what he wants, figlia mia, and I've already agreed. Something in his tone made my stomach clench. What did you agree to? We'll discuss it when you come home. For now, you do what he says, yes? You stay safe. Let me handle this. Papa. I love you, Hope. Everything I do, everything I've ever done is to protect you and your brother. Remember that. He ended the call before I could respond, leaving me staring at the phone with a growing sense of dread. My father had made a deal with Michael Bianke. A deal that somehow involved me. 3 rules. Don't fall in love. Don't marry. Don't call attention. I had a terrible feeling that at least one of those rules was about to be broken, and I wouldn't have any say in which one. Morning came too early, pale sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to cover. I woke disoriented, my body one massive bruise, my mind still foggy from whatever painkillers Maria had insisted I take the night before. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then it all came rushing back. The attack, Michael Bianke, my father's cryptic words. I know what he wants, figlia mia, and I've already agreed. A knock at the door pulled me from spiraling thoughts. Come in, I called, my voice rough. Maria entered carrying a tray, coffee in a delicate porcelain cup, fresh fruit, what looked like homemade pastries. Buongiorno, cara. How are you feeling? Like I was in a car accident. I pushed myself up to sitting, wincing at the protest from my ribs. But alive, which is better than the alternative. Indeed. She set the tray on the nightstand and handed me the coffee. It was perfect, strong, just the right temperature with a splash of cream. Michael would like to speak with you this morning. After you've eaten, showered, there's clothing in the closet that should fit. I glanced at the closet door. How did you know my size? Her smile was knowing. Michael is very thorough when he wants to be. Breakfast first, yes? Then we'll see what my nephew has planned. After she left, I took my time with the coffee and pastries, letting the caffeine slowly restore something like normal function to my brain. The shower helped more, hot water sluicing away the dried blood and grime, though it couldn't do anything for the spectacular bruising across my ribs and shoulder. The closet, when I finally investigated it, held clothes in exactly my style and size. Nothing ostentatious, simple jeans, comfortable sweaters, a few dresses that were elegant without being formal. Everything still had tags, designer labels that made my stomach clench. This hadn't been thrown together overnight. This had been prepared, planned. How long had Michael Bianke been planning whatever this was? I chose jeans and a soft cashmere sweater in deep gray, found clean underwear and even shoes that fit perfectly. When I emerged from the bedroom, I found Michael waiting in the hallway, leaning against the wall with that casual elegance that seemed hardwired into him. Better, he observed, his gaze traveling over me with clinical assessment. The color suits you. Where did the clothes come from? I have excellent personal shoppers. He pushed off from the wall. Come, we have much to discuss, and I prefer to do it over breakfast. He led me through the house, pointing out rooms as we passed. Library, formal dining room, his office, off limits without permission. The kitchen where Maria was already preparing what smelled like a feast. We ended up in a sunroom overlooking the grounds, a casual table already set for two. Michael held out a chair for me before taking his own seat. Another man appeared, not threatening, just present, and poured fresh juice and coffee before disappearing as silently as he'd come. "Your brother improved overnight," Michael said, unfolding his napkin with precise movements. "The surgery was successful. Your father spent the night at the hospital." "How do you know that?" His smile was slight. "I make it my business to know everything that affects my interests. And right now, Hope, you are very much my interest." The food arrived. Frittata with fresh herbs, perfectly toasted bread, fruit that tasted like it had been picked that morning. I ate because my body demanded it, but my attention remained fixed on the man across from me, waiting for whatever bomb he was about to drop. "You're wondering what deal your father made," Michael finally said, setting down his fork. "What I demanded in exchange for your rescue and continued protection." The thought had crossed my mind. "I asked for your hand in marriage." The words hung in the air between us, so absurd that for a moment I thought I'd misheard. Then his expression registered, serious, certain, not a hint of humor. "You're insane," I managed. "Practical." He leaned back in his chair, all relaxed confidence. "The Castellanos want to destabilize your father's organization. Killing or capturing you would accomplish that. Marrying you to me, however, creates an alliance between Bonaro and Bianke that would make us untouchable. Together we control enough territory and influence to shut down the Castellanos permanently. So I'm a business merger. You're a solution to multiple problems." His dark eyes held mine. "And before you refuse, consider this. Your father has no other options. Marco will need months to recover. Your father can't be everywhere at once. The Castellanos have allies, resources, patience. They'll wait for the right moment and strike again, unless you're no longer a target, unless you're protected by both the Bonaro and Bianke names." My coffee had gone cold. I set the cup down carefully, afraid that if I held it any longer I might throw it. My father agreed to this, just handed me over like property. He agreed because he loves you enough to make an impossible choice. Michael's voice gentled slightly. And because I made him an offer he couldn't refuse, complete protection for you, the best doctors for Marco, and a united front against the Castellanos. In exchange, I get what I've needed for years. A legitimate reason to merge our operations without appearing weak. You need me to not look weak. The laugh that escaped was harsh. That's perfect. That's just perfect. Hope, don't. I stood abruptly, ignoring the protest from my battered body. You don't get to use my name like we're friends. Like this is normal. You orchestrated this. You probably knew about the attack before it happened. I did. His admission was matter of fact. I knew the Castellanos were planning something. I didn't know when or where, but I had people watching. When it happened, I responded. You could have warned us. And risk you going underground where I couldn't reach you. Risk your father putting you somewhere, even I couldn't find you. He rose as well, moving around the table with predatory grace. No, Bellezza. I needed you vulnerable enough to accept my protection. Desperate enough that your father would see reason. You manipulated everything. Yes. He stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. But I didn't create the threat. I didn't make the Castellanos target your family. I simply used an existing situation to my advantage. That's what leaders do, Hope. We see opportunities, and we take them. I'm not an opportunity. I'm a person. You're both. His hand came up, and I flinched before I could stop myself. He froze, something flickering across his face that might have been regret. I won't hurt you. Not physically, not ever. That's a promise I can make and keep. But you'll marry me against my will. I'll marry you with your father's blessing and your own eventual understanding of why this is necessary. His hand dropped. I'm not asking you to love me, Hope. I'm not even asking you to like me. I'm asking you to be smart enough to see that this marriage protects you, your brother, your father, and ensures the Castellanos can't touch any of you. And what do you get out of it besides a political alliance? His smile was slow, dangerous. You, in my home, under my protection, bearing my name. That's worth more than any territory or influence, Bellezza. Because when people see Hope Bonaro become Hope Bianke, they'll know that the old rivalries are over. They'll know that a new order is emerging, and they'll think very carefully before challenging it. I wanted to argue more, to find holes in his logic, to prove that there was another way. But the truth was, I'd grown up in this world. I knew how it worked. Marriage as alliance. Women as bridges between families. Power as the only currency that mattered. I want to see Marco, I said finally. Tomorrow, when he's strong enough to handle visitors. I want to finish my degree. You'll have whatever resources you need, private tutors if necessary, but preferably you'll continue at the university once it's safe. I stopped, not sure what I wanted anymore. Michael stepped closer, his hand finally making contact, fingers tracing along my jawline with surprising gentleness. You want freedom. I understand that. But freedom in our world is an illusion, Hope. We're all bound by obligations, by family, by blood. The only choice is who we allow to hold those chains. His thumb traced across my lower lip. I'm offering to hold yours carefully, to protect what matters to you, to give you the room to be who you want to be, within the boundaries that keep you alive. That's not freedom. No, he agreed, but it's the best I can offer, and it's more than the Castellanos would give you if they got their hands on you. The reminder of what waited outside these walls made my stomach clench. Michael was right about one thing. I had no good options. Only choices between bad and worse. I need time, I said. To think, to process. You have until tomorrow evening. Then I'll need your answer. He stepped back, giving me space. Maria will show you the library. I think you'll find it has an excellent collection of medical texts, among other things. Consider it your sanctuary while you decide. And if I say no, then I'll protect you anyway, for as long as I can. But your father's deal stands. The alliance will happen. The only question is whether you're an active participant or a resentful prisoner. His expression softened fractionally. I'd prefer the former, Hope, but I'll accept the latter if that's what it takes to keep you alive. The library was everything Michael had promised and more. 3 floors of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, comfortable reading nooks with leather chairs, and windows that flooded the space with natural light. I found the medical section easily, comprehensive texts on everything from anatomy to surgical techniques, including several rare editions that should have been in museums. I pulled down a volume on cardiovascular surgery and settled into a window seat, trying to lose myself in diagrams of the human heart. Instead, I kept seeing Michael's dark eyes, hearing his matter-of-fact explanation of how he'd manipulated everyone into this situation. I needed you vulnerable enough to accept my protection. The cold calculation of it should have repulsed me. Would have repulsed me if I'd been anyone else. But I'd grown up in this world, daughter of a man who made similar calculations daily. The difference was that my father had always presented his decisions as protection, as love. Michael just presented them as strategy, which was more honest. You're thinking too hard. Maria's voice made me look up. She'd entered so quietly I hadn't heard her. That's not always wise in this house. Is anywhere safe to think? The library, the gardens when weather permits, your room. She settled into the chair across from mine. Michael has made it clear that your privacy is to be respected. No surveillance in the spaces he's designated as yours. How generous. It is, actually. Her expression turned serious. My nephew is many things, Hope. Calculating, ambitious, sometimes frighteningly intelligent. But he's not cruel. If he says you'll have freedom within boundaries, he means it. I set the book aside. Did you know about his plan to force this marriage? I knew he was considering an alliance with the Bonaros. I didn't know he would be so direct in his approach. She smiled slightly. Michael doesn't believe in wasting time. When he sees what he wants, he takes it. And he wants me. He wants stability. He wants to consolidate power before his rivals can prevent it. He wants to protect territory and establish dominance. Maria paused. But yes, Kara, I think he also wants you. I've never seen him go to such lengths for purely strategic reasons. That's supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to help you understand what you're dealing with. She leaned forward. You have a choice, Hope. Not the choice you want. Freedom, independence, control over your own life. But a choice nonetheless. You can marry Michael as an enemy, making every day a battle. Or you can marry him as an ally, finding what common ground you can while maintaining your sense of self. Those are terrible options. Welcome to our world. Her smile was sad. We women learn early to make the best of impossible situations. Your grandmother did. Your mother would have, if she'd lived. Now it's your turn. The mention of my mother, who I barely remembered, sent an unexpected pang through my chest. She died when I was 6, supposedly in a car accident, but I'd overheard enough whispered conversations to suspect the truth was more complicated. Did you know my mother? I met her once, at a gathering between families. She was beautiful, kind, and utterly terrified of your father's world. She never adjusted, never found peace with what her life had become. Maria's gaze held mine. Don't make her mistake, Hope. Don't spend your life fighting reality. Accept what you must accept, and then carve out whatever happiness you can within those constraints. After she left, I remained in the library for hours, alternating between medical texts and my own spiraling thoughts. The building had been designed for sound containment. I could hear no footsteps, no voices, just the occasional creak of old wood and the whisper of turning pages. Dinner was brought to me on a tray. Pasta with a cream sauce that tasted homemade, fresh bread, a glass of wine I didn't touch. After eating, I ventured out into the hallway, exploring with the tentative curiosity of someone who wasn't sure if they were a guest or a prisoner. I found Michael in his office, the door open despite his earlier declaration that it was off limits. He was at his desk, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie discarded, reading what looked like financial documents with fierce concentration. The desk lamp cast dramatic shadows across his face, emphasizing the strong line of his jaw and the slight furrow between his brows. Are you going to stand in the doorway all evening, or are you going to come in? He asked without looking up. I stepped inside, noting details, more books, a chess set on a side table, photographs on the wall showing what must have been previous generations of Bianches. How did you know I was there? Your perfume. Something with vanilla and honey. Now he did look up, setting down his pen. You're not wearing any right now, but the scent lingered from earlier. You stood in that exact spot for approximately 30 seconds before I spoke. That's unsettling. That's awareness. It keeps you alive in my line of work. He gestured to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Sit. You look like you have questions. I sat, because standing felt too much like a confrontation I wasn't ready for. Tell me about your parents. The request clearly surprised him. Why? Because I'm apparently going to marry into this family. I'd like to know what I'm getting into. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. My father died when I was 15. Heart attack, though there were rumors it wasn't natural. My mother remarried within a year. a man from the Chicago organization who consolidated his power by absorbing what remained of my father's territory. That's why you're so focused on consolidation. You watched someone else do it to your family. Perceptive. His smile was slight. Yes. I spent my teenage years watching my stepfather dismantle everything my father built, piece by piece, deal by deal. He kept me around because it amused him to have the former heir serving as errand boy. When I turned 21, I killed him. The casual admission should have shocked me. It didn't. And your mother? Died the same night. Officially of grief, though the doctors noted she'd been taking increasing amounts of medication for months. I suspect she'd been planning it, waiting for me to old enough to act. He paused. Maria is my father's sister. She took me in after, helped me rebuild what was left, taught me that power without patience is just violence. Is that what this is? Patience. This is strategy. The Bonaros and Bianches have been rivals for 3 generations, Hope. That rivalry has cost both families territory, influence, and blood. Your father sees it. I see it. The only question was how to end it without one family destroying the other. He rose, moving around the desk to lean against it, close enough that I had to look up to maintain eye contact. You're the answer to that question. I'm a person, not an answer. You're both, and the sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. I stood as well, refusing to let him have the height advantage. What if I say no tomorrow? What's your plan then? I'll convince your father to install you in a secure location, somewhere the Castellanos can't reach. You'll live under constant guard, unable to finish your degree, unable to have anything resembling a normal life. And when your father eventually dies, which in our world he will, you'll be alone. Without protection. Without options. His hand came up, fingers tracing along my jawline. Or you marry me. You keep your name. Keep studying. Keep the freedom to be who you want to be. The only difference is, you have my protection instead of your father's. My name instead of being unmarried Bonaro. And what do you want from me in return? His smile was slow, dangerous, seductive in a way that made my breath catch despite everything. Your presence at my side, your intelligence applied to problems we face, your medical knowledge, which I've learned is considerable despite your youth. His thumb traced across my lower lip. And eventually, when you're ready, everything else that comes with marriage. The implication was clear. He wanted me physically, not just politically. The realization sent heat through me that had nothing to do with anger. I need to think, I said, my voice shakier than I wanted it to be. Then think, Bellezza. You have until tomorrow evening. He stepped back, releasing me from whatever spell his proximity had woven. But know this. I don't share. I don't wait indefinitely, and I always get what I want. The question is whether you'll make this easy or difficult. I fled before he could say anything else, before the treacherous part of me that responded to his dark eyes and dangerous charm could make choices my rational mind would regret. That night, I dreamed of my mother. She was sitting beside my childhood bed, stroking my hair the way she used to when I was small. In the dream, she spoke words I couldn't quite hear, but her message was clear. Survive, figlia mia. Whatever it takes, survive. I woke with tears on my face and a decision crystallizing in my chest. Michael Bianke was offering me survival. Not happiness, not love, not freedom, but survival with dignity. In our world, that was more than most women got. Tomorrow evening I would give him my answer. And God help me, I already knew what it would be. The morning of decision dawned clear and cold. November announcing its arrival with frost on the windows and a bite in the air that penetrated even the house's excellent insulation. I'd slept poorly, my dreams a chaotic mix of the car accident, Michael's dark eyes, and my mother's ghost offering advice I couldn't quite understand. Maria found me in the library again, curled into the same window seat with a book I wasn't really reading. She didn't say anything at first, just settled nearby with her own coffee and what looked like correspondence she was reviewing. The companionable silence was oddly soothing. "Michael has arranged for you to visit Marco this afternoon," she finally said, "if you still wish to go." "I do. He'll accompany you personally. The hospital is technically neutral territory, but with the Castellanos active, nowhere is truly safe right now." I set my book aside. "Maria, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course, Kara. Did you ever have to make a choice like this? Between bad options?" Her smile was sad, knowing. I was 17 when my father arranged my marriage to Antonio Romano. He was 43, a widower with 3 grown children. I'd never met him before our wedding day. She paused, sipping her coffee. I hated him for the first year, hated my father for selling me, hated the world that gave me no choice. Then Antonio died, heart attack during a business meeting, and I was free. I'm sorry. Don't be. In those 10 years, I learned that survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about finding moments of joy in impossible circumstances. Antonio wasn't cruel, just indifferent. When I stopped fighting reality and started accepting it, I found I could carve out a life for myself within the marriage. His money gave me freedom to pursue interests he didn't care about. His name gave me protection. His indifference gave me privacy. You're saying I should accept Michael's proposal. I'm saying that fighting every battle means you lose the war. Choose which fights matter, Hope. Save your strength for those. Let the rest go. At noon, Michael appeared in the library doorway. He'd changed into a perfectly tailored dark suit that screamed money and power, his hair styled back, every inch the dangerous man he was. Ready? The drive to St. Vincent's was quiet. Michael sat beside me in the back of an armored SUV. Yes, armored. I'd noticed the reinforced panels and bulletproof glass, working on his phone while I stared out the window at the city passing by. You're nervous, he observed without looking up. Marco and I have always been close. Seeing him injured will be difficult, Michael finished, but necessary. He needs to know you're safe. The hospital's private floor was locked down like a fortress. Men in suits at every entrance, security cameras visible at every angle, doctors and nurses who moved with the efficiency of people who knew they were being watched. Michael's hand settled at the small of my back as we walked, a gesture that probably looked protective to observers, but felt like a claim of ownership. Marco's room was at the end of the corridor, 2 more guards flanking the door. Inside, my brother lay in the adjustable bed, bandages wrapped around his torso, IV lines running into both arms, his face pale but alert. Sorelina, he breathed when he saw me, and his smile was weak but genuine. You're okay. I crossed to his bedside, taking his hand carefully. I'm okay. You're the one who got shot. Just twice. Nothing vital. His attempt at humor fell flat. Papa told me what happened, that Bianke saved you. I glanced back at Michael, who'd positioned himself by the door, giving us space but clearly listening to every word. He did. And the deal Papa made? Marco's eyes moved between us. Is it what I think it is? Your sister and I are engaged, Michael confirmed, his tone casual. The announcement will be made publicly once you're well enough to attend the ceremony. Marco's hand tightened around mine. Hope, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I cut him off gently. We both know how this works, Marco. Papa made the best choice he could. Michael is offering protection we desperately need right now. He's also getting everything he's wanted for years, Marco said, his gaze sharp on Michael. Control over Bonaro territory, alliance with our connections, legitimacy for his operations. And a wife worth more than all of that combined, Michael interrupted, pushing off from the doorframe. Your sister isn't a business transaction, Marco. She's the future of both our families. Treat her as such. The rebuke, delivered so casually, made my breath catch. Marco looked equally surprised, his expression shifting to something thoughtful as he studied Michael with new assessment. You actually mean that? Marco said slowly. I don't say things I don't mean. Michael moved to stand beside me, his hand once again finding my back. Hope will have everything she needs. Education, freedom within reasonable security parameters, respect. The only thing she won't have is the option to refuse. Bastard, Marco muttered, but without real heat, realist. Michael's smile was slight. Your family couldn't protect her, Marco. I can. That's all that matters. We stayed for another hour, Marco extracting promises from me that I'd finish medical school, that I'd visit regularly, that I wouldn't let Michael completely control my life. I made the promises because they comforted him, even though we both knew how fragile they were. On the drive back, Michael broke the silence. You haven't given me your answer, because you already know what it is. Perhaps, but I want to hear you say it. I turned to face him properly. I'll marry you. I'll play the role you need me to play, stand beside you at public events, help build whatever alliance you're creating. But I want things in return. Name them. I finish my medical degree no matter what. I visit Marco whenever I want. I maintain contact with the few friends I have who don't know about my family's business. I paused. And you don't touch me until I'm ready. His expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in those dark eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. Agreed, with one modification. What modification? I don't touch you intimately until you're ready, but we'll share a bed, share space, present as a married couple in all ways except the physical. I need people to believe this is real hope. That means proximity, casual affection, the appearance of a genuine relationship. Heat crept into my cheeks. Define casual affection. His smile was slow, dangerous. Hand-holding. My arm around you in public. Kisses on the cheek or forehead. The kind of touches that suggest I'm your husband and you're my wife. He leaned closer. Nothing you're not ready for, but enough that no one questions our arrangement. And in private? In private, we negotiate boundaries like adults. You tell me what you're comfortable with. I respect those limits. But hope. His hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. I will push those boundaries. Slowly, carefully, but relentlessly. Because eventually, I want a real marriage. And I'm a patient man when it comes to things I truly want. The promise in his voice made my pulse quicken. You're very confident. I'm very certain. He released me, sitting back. You'll learn the difference. That evening, my father called. I answered in my borrowed room, Maria having given me privacy for the conversation. Hope? Papa. Michael told me you've agreed. Did I have a choice? We always have choices, figlia mia. They're just not always the choices we want. His voice was tired, years of carrying the weight of our family evident in every syllable. Your mother would be proud of you. You're stronger than she was, more practical. You'll survive this. Is that all you want for me? Survival? I want you happy, safe, loved. But in our world, survival comes first. Everything else is luxury. A pause. Michael Bianke is a good man in a bad business, Hope. He'll keep his word to you. Hold him to it. After we hung up, I stood at the window, looking out over the Bianke estate. Somewhere in this elegant prison, Michael was planning our future, our wedding, our public image, the empire we'd build together. And I was standing in a borrowed room wearing borrowed clothes, agreeing to a borrowed life. But Maria's words echoed. Choose which fights matter. I wouldn't fight the marriage. That battle was lost before it began. But I would fight for my sense of self, for my dreams, for the parts of Hope Bonaro that Michael Bianke couldn't touch no matter how many contracts were signed. Tomorrow, I would officially become his fiancée. Eventually, I would become his wife. But I would never, ever become his possession. Even if I had to pretend otherwise for the rest of my life. The announcement of our engagement was made at a gathering of families, not quite a summit, but close enough. The venue was a private estate in the countryside, neutral territory controlled by an old Don who'd been mediating disputes since before I was born. Michael had explained the politics during the drive. Appearing together publicly would signal to the Castellanos that their window of opportunity had closed. The Bonaro-Bianke alliance was now fact, not speculation. I wore a dress Maria had helped me select, deep burgundy, that complemented my coloring without being ostentatious, with a neckline that was elegant rather than revealing. Michael had given me a ring that morning, a stunning diamond surrounded by smaller rubies, slipping it onto my finger with ceremonial care while Maria watched with approval. It was my grandmother's, he'd said. She would have liked you. You have her practical nature. Now, standing in a ballroom filled with the most dangerous men in the American underworld and their families, I felt anything but practical. I felt like an imposter, a medical student playing dress-up in a world of killers and power brokers. Michael's hand was warm at my waist, his presence beside me both reassuring and unnerving. He'd been teaching me the politics all week, which families were allies, which were neutral, which were actively hostile. The Castellanos were here, of course, Marco's cold gaze tracking us across the room. Smile, Michael murmured against my ear. You look terrified, and that's the last thing we want to project. I forced my lips to curve. I am terrified. Good. Fear keeps you alert. Just don't let them see it. My father appeared, moving through the crowd with the confidence of a man who'd ruled his territory for 30 years. Behind him, leaning heavily on a cane but upright, was Marco. My brother shouldn't have been here. The doctors had protested his discharge, but he'd insisted. This was too important to miss. Papa, I breathed as he reached us. Figlia mia. He embraced me carefully, mindful of the watching eyes. You look beautiful. Your mother would be so proud. Would she? I couldn't help asking. Or would she hate what you've done? His expression flickered with old pain. She would understand that I had no choice, that this was the only way to keep you safe. He turned to Michael, extending his hand. Bianke. Bonaro. They shook, a gesture loaded with significance. 2 families, 3 generations of rivalry, ending with a handshake and a ring. Marco reached me next, pulling me into a one-armed hug that made him wince. If he hurts you... He won't, Michael interrupted calmly. I've made that promise to Hope, and I'm making it now to you and your father. She'll be protected, respected, and given every resource to pursue her own path. My word as head of the Bianke family. Marco studied him for a long moment. Your word better be as good as your reputation for ruthlessness, Bianke. Because if it's not, then you'll have legitimate cause to start a war I'd rather avoid. Michael's smile didn't reach his eyes. But it won't come to that. I take care of what's mine. The evening progressed with excruciating slowness. We made the rounds, accepting congratulations that ranged from genuine to barely concealed resentment. Michael never left my side, his hand a constant presence at my waist or back, subtly steering me through conversations and away from potential trouble. It was during dinner that the Castellanos made their move. Marco Castellano, different Marco, confusing, approached our table with practiced ease, his smile pleasant, and his eyes calculating. Bianke, Miss Bonaro, congratulations on your engagement. Castellano. Michael's tone was neutral, but I felt the tension in his body. Such a sudden romance. Castellano's gaze moved to me, assessing. One might almost think it was more business arrangement than love match. One might think a lot of things, Michael replied smoothly, but Hope and I prefer privacy regarding our personal affairs. Of course, Castellano waved a hand dismissively. Though I must admit, I'm curious how a medical student managed to capture the attention of New York's most eligible bachelor. You must have quite the bedside manner, Miss Bonaro. The insult was clear, the implication obvious. Before Michael could respond, before I could even process my own reaction, I found myself speaking. Actually, Mr. Castellano, it was my ability to identify when someone is full of shit that caught his attention. I smiled sweetly. A skill I'm demonstrating right now, as you passive-aggressively suggest I'm nothing more than a prostitute who got lucky. Would you like me to continue? Or shall we drop the pretense of civility? The table went silent. Michael's hand tightened fractionally on my waist. Warning or approval, I couldn't tell. Castellano's expression hardened, his mask of pleasant civility cracking. You're quite spirited, he said finally. I'm quite unimpressed with transparent intimidation tactics. I held his gaze. Michael and I are engaged. The alliance between Bonaro and Bianke is now formalized. Your window to destabilize my family closed the moment I agreed to wear this ring. These are facts, Mr. Castellano. No amount of veiled insults will change them. Hope, my father's voice carried a warning. But Michael was smiling, a genuine expression of delight that I'd never seen before. I believe my fiancée has made herself clear, Castellano. Was there anything else you wanted to discuss? Castellano's jaw worked. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. Short and bitter, but real. You've chosen well, Bianke. She'll need that spirit to survive in your world. He nodded once and walked away, rejoining his family at their table. That was incredibly stupid, Marco hissed from beside me. Or incredibly brave, Michael countered. Castellano respects strength. Hope just demonstrated she won't be cowed by intimidation. That's valuable. My father looked less convinced, but he said nothing. Just reached across the table to squeeze my hand once before returning to his meal. The rest of the evening passed without incident, though I caught Castellano watching us several times, his expression thoughtful rather than hostile. By the time we left, exhaustion had settled into my bones, not physical tiredness, but the emotional drain of maintaining a facade for hours. In the car, Michael finally spoke. You surprised me tonight. By standing up to Castellano? By doing it so effectively. He turned to face me. I expected you to let me handle it, to play the demure fiancé. Instead, you took control of the situation. Is that a problem? It's unexpected, and rather exciting. His smile was slow, dangerous. You're not going to be the quiet, compliant wife I expected, are you? I never agreed to be quiet or compliant. I agreed to marry you. There's a difference. Indeed there is. His hand found mine, thumb tracing over the engagement ring. This is going to be interesting, Bellezza. More interesting than I anticipated. 2 weeks later, the wedding was held at a private chapel on the Bianke estate. It was small by mob wedding standards. Only immediate family and closest allies. Less than 50 people. I wore a simple ivory dress, elegant but not elaborate. My hair styled by Maria with delicate flowers woven through the dark strands. My father walked me down the aisle, Marco standing beside Michael as an honored witness to the union of our families. The ceremony was traditional Italian Catholic, conducted by a priest who'd been serving the Bianke family for decades. When Michael lifted my veil and spoke his vows, his dark eyes held mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. I, Michael Luca Bianke, take you, Hope Isabella Bonaro, to be my wife. I promise to protect you with every resource I possess, to honor your intelligence and strength, and to build with you something stronger than either of our families have ever known. My own vows felt inadequate by comparison. I, Hope Isabella Bonaro, take you, Michael Luca Bianke, to be my husband. I promise to stand beside you, to use my knowledge and abilities to serve our shared future, and to be honest even when honesty is inconvenient. The priest blessed our union, and Michael kissed me, our first real kiss, not the chaste pecks on the cheek he'd limited himself to during our engagement. It was thorough, claiming, a statement to everyone watching that I was his now in every way that mattered. The reception was elegant, but subdued. No ostentatious displays, no excess, just good food, better wine, and the careful politicking that always accompanied gatherings of dangerous men. I danced with my father, with Marco, with several of Michael's lieutenants, and finally, with my husband. Mrs. Bianke, he said, as we swayed to music provided by a string quartet. How does it feel? Surreal, terrifying, oddly right. I looked up at him. I never thought I'd end up here. Married to me specifically, or married at all? Both. I had a plan. Finish medical school, maybe do Doctors Without Borders, help people without the complications of family politics. I laughed softly. That plan is dead now. Not dead, adapted. His hand tightened at my waist. You'll finish medical school, Hope. And when you do, we'll find ways for you to help people that don't involve leaving my protection. Clinics in our territory, perhaps. Medical support for families who can't afford proper care. Your knowledge doesn't have to be wasted just because you're my wife. The gesture, small but significant, made something in my chest loosen. You mean that? I always mean what I say to you. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. I told you I wanted a real marriage, Bellezza. That means supporting your dreams, not crushing them. That night, he carried me across the threshold of our bedroom. The suite was massive, dominated by a 4-poster bed with fresh linens and soft lighting. Michael set me down carefully, his hands lingering at my waist. I remember our agreement, he said quietly. Nothing you're not ready for. But hope. His fingers traced up my spine to the zipper of my dress. Tell me what you are ready for. Because I've been patient for weeks, and seeing you in this dress all day has tested every limit I have. My hands found his tie, loosening it with trembling fingers. I'm ready for you to keep your promise, to show me that this marriage can be more than politics and protection. I met his dark gaze. I'm ready to try, Michael, to see if we can build something real. His kiss was his answer. Thorough, demanding, patient, and urgent all at once. We took our time that night, learning each other with careful attention, building something fragile but genuine from the ashes of forced circumstances. And when morning came, when I woke wrapped in his arms with sunlight streaming through windows overlooking the estate, I realized something fundamental had shifted. I was Hope Bianke now. Not just in name, but in reality. Michael's wife, his partner, his equal in ways neither of us had fully anticipated. The next months unfolded with surprising ease. I returned to medical school under heavy security, my classmates assuming my marriage was some kind of whirlwind romance rather than arranged alliance. Michael kept his promises. I had freedom to study, to see Marco, to build a life that felt authentically mine within the boundaries of his world. The Castellanos made one more attempt to destabilize things, targeting a Bianke warehouse in New Jersey. Michael's response was swift and devastating. Not violence, but the kind of economic pressure that left them scrambling to maintain their own territory. Within 3 months, they'd sued for peace, acknowledging the new order. My role evolved from reluctant bride to active participant. Michael began consulting me on medical issues affecting families in his territory, putting me in charge of establishing a clinic that provided quality care regardless of ability to pay. I recruited doctors who didn't ask too many questions, nurses who understood discretion, and built something that actually helped people. Marco recovered fully, though he'd always walk with a slight limp. He and Michael developed a grudging respect that eventually became genuine friendship, united by their mutual desire to protect me and build something better than what previous generations had created. And Michael, dangerous, calculating Michael, proved to be a husband I hadn't expected. Demanding, yes. Possessive, absolutely. But also supportive, intellectually engaging, and surprisingly gentle when we were alone. He pushed me to be stronger, smarter, more strategic. And I pushed back, refusing to let him make unilateral decisions that affected us both. "We're partners," I told him one night after a particularly intense discussion about expanding operations. "You can't just decide things without consulting me." "You're right." His admission surprised me. "I've been operating alone for so long, I forget that your perspective matters as much as mine." "Thank you for acknowledging that." He pulled me close, his hand cupping my face with that familiar gentleness. "Hope, Bianke, you've become the most dangerous thing in my life." "How so?" "Because I love you." The confession, raw and honest, made my breath stop. I didn't plan to. Didn't expect to. But somewhere between forced engagement and reluctant marriage, you became everything. My wife, my conscience, my reason for building something better than what I inherited. Tears pricked my eyes. "I love you too. God help me, but I do." His kiss was answer and promise and beginning all rolled into one. We'd started as strangers forced together by circumstances neither of us controlled. We'd become partners through necessity and choice. And somehow, impossibly, we'd become lovers who'd chosen each other despite everything. The world we lived in was still dangerous, still morally complex, still built on foundations I didn't always agree with. But within that world, we'd carved out something genuine, something worth fighting for. I was Hope Bianke, medical student, mob wife, and survivor, and I wouldn't have it any other way.